Oral History Project. Mrs. Lena Schaffer, March 26, 1972.
Now, did you start, whereabouts did you start, Mom? Did you start way back from, you coming over from Germany?
Well, I was going to start this when we came out there and built the sod house. Is that what you wanted?
That's fine.
Please.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. We came from Germany in '83 when I was 1 year old. We came by train to Redfield. From there, my father and a man walked west to look for some land that was to be homesteaded. They came to a creek the Indians called Medicine Creek. They walked to a small house where a Mr. Irvin came from Canada and homesteaded, and it was built. It was a wooden structure. But my father built a sod house on a small hill just east of the creek. Also dug a well near the creek. It was a bucket well. When I was nearly 7 years old, I went to school. The schoolhouse also was sod on, but we had to go on the other side of the creek, so my brothers and I took off our shoes and waded through and put our shoes on the other side of the creek and walked a half a mile. We had school from June till October, as the creek was too high to go to school, and in winter it was too cold. So we just had school in the fall and in the spring. When my father was building the sod house, he walked from Redfield, where my mother and my brothers and myself stayed in a hotel. Mr. Irvin hauled some lumber for a windows and door frames for the sod house, and it was a two-room house. We slept on a feather bed on the sod floor, and my father and neighbors cut the sod. It was 4 inches thick and about 10 by 14, and it was laid like bricks. And then in 2 years, he had to prove up, but at that time, you had to have a wooden frame building. So they built one 12 by 14, and it had 2 doors and 2 windows. And then we had 3 rooms, 2 in the sod house and this frame building. And we had no chairs, just a table. And the table was made from a board laid on pieces of sod, and that was near, and that was then changed its name. Well, that was all I ever remember.
When you arrived in Redfield, how did you get there?
How did we get there?
To Redfield.
Well, by train.
By train.
By train, yeah. We got there, but there was no other way on the walking because they had no other way to go. And of course, when my father started farming, he farmed with oxen. And I can always remember the first team oxen he bought and one white cow. I can always remember that.
Is the town of Redfield still there? Do you know?
Yeah, oh yes, Redfield is still there, but that's not our county seat, you see. But that was the only town that was around. Miller is our county seat now. You see, it was the Dakota Territory, and then it was divided, and it's now North and South Dakota, and we live in South Dakota.
What part of South Dakota?
What part we live? Well, my address is Zell. It's a little town about 10 miles where we go to church. 10 miles north, and it has a little store and gas station and elevator and church. Just a little bird.
You mentioned the construction of the sod house. What sort of roof did it have?
Well, it's sod. The roof is. You see, they lay you have to have some lumber. You have to lay, when your sod house is as high as you want it, then you lay a wooden structure on top, and then you slant it up a little bit. It's all sod. And where we slept, we always slept on the sod because we brought lots of feather beds from Germany, and we slept on feather beds and covered up with them. And then, of course, when we, for a long, long time, we only owned 2 chairs. My father and mother had chairs, and we kids just sat on benches and table. And we had a range, a cook stove. And, of course, that part was wood for a floor, but where we slept there was never any wood. It was just the grass we slept on and that.
What fuel did you use in that cooking range?
Well, hay. You twist up, they took a scythe and cut this long grass, and they twisted it up real tight, you know, and that'll burn for a long time, and that's what they cooked with, hay.
Did you twist that by hand, or did you have one of the little machines?
No, we twisted by hand. We kids all, if the bigger kids could twist pretty good, and the little ones did some, and we always twisted it. Oh, yes.
I've always been interested. Where did you keep that twisted hay until it was ready for use? It seems to me that would take up a lot of room.
A lot of room. Oh no, you just stacked it up. It never got wet, or even if the snow went on it, it really never got wet. You just stacked it up on the outside of your shanty and burned it. And then after a while, you got the other kind of heating fuel, where you burned a straw boiler. You have one of those iron boiler. It wasn't iron either. I tell you what it was. It was a heavy tin, and was square, about that square and that high, and you fill that solid with straw. At that time they farmed that straw, and we kids used to stomp that in there, just solid. And then you take the 2 lids in the center of your range off, and you tip that bottom side up, and that'll burn sometimes for 12 hours. And there's where your heat comes from.
Now, I've heard of stoves like that referred to as airtights. Would that be the same thing?
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Could you tell us what a typical day was like for you in that sod house?
Oh, typical day.
If there was such a thing.
Well, I tell you, where we mostly just played round, but there wasn't very many playthings. And I tell you what there was there, and it's still there. Edna, what did I say they call those rocks that come out of the sky?
Meteors.
Oh.
Meteors?
Yeah, There's one there, and it was near the schoolhouse, near the sod schoolhouse. And you know, when they come down, they bury themselves, and you run down to the rock. And the rock maybe stuck out that much, but the dirt was that much over, and we used to run and jump on that rock and run up again. It was quite a big place, about as big as this room, and it's still there.
Was that meteorite there when you came there?
Oh yes, it's been there, and nobody knows how long it's been there. It's the only one right around there. It's been there for years and years. You know, that's an awful rock country. There is so many rocks there.
What time would you go to school in the morning? What was your school day like?
Well, we used to go, maybe about 10 o'clock in the morning. We always had to go through this creek. Now, you couldn't go through the creek. You couldn't start early. It was too cold because you always had to wade through there. The water maybe was that deep, and we'd wade through and put our shoes on the other side, and then be about a half a mile, but it was just a little ways down to that creek. And they claim that they called it Medicine Creek, and they say the Indians is the ones that, and it's that yet, Medicine Creek. And when that gets big and high, Edna knows, it sure goes. There's a lot of water.
Was that a one-room school?
Yes, and the only 2 things that we learned was reading and writing, and we learned to read on a chart. If you know what a big chart, maybe you wouldn't remember what a big chart is. It's about this long, and it hangs on the wall, and and you turn it over just like a kind of a calendar, like pages and pages, and we had to read off of that. And then we had a blackboard to write on. That was about all we had.
Was that school building frame or was it sod too?
Oh, it was sod, but it had as the ceiling was wooden, but this outside was frame. And our teacher name was Mayberry, and he lived just across the road to the west and a little bit to the south, and he took up what you call a tree claim. There was two claims you could take up, either a preemption, whatever that is, or a tree claim, see? And he took up this tree claim, and you had to plant 5 acres of trees in order to prove up on it. And you had to live there, and of course you had to always have a frame house before you could prove up on it, before it was yours. And my grandson owns this same land that I'm talking about now.
How many students in your school?
How many there was? Well, I know. There was 4 of us and 1 Baxter and 2 Collisons. So I know that.
How many years did you attend that school?
That school there, well, just 2 years. After that, they built a school on my father's land on the northeast corner, and Mr. Thompson hauled the lumber out there, and they built a 1-room school like most of them are. Most of them that used to be around here, I guess, a regular frame schoolhouse.
Did you ever have to stay in that schoolhouse all night because
Oh,
of blizzards?
yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I tell you, one time an awful blizzard came up, and there was the urban boys at this frame schoolhouse I'm talking about. There was more children went there then. This isn't the sod school that I'm talking. And it was a half a mile from us through the land. Nobody went around the road those days. And a blizzard came up, and this Mr. Urban sent his boy down there on horseback to lead the kids home. And of course, by the time he got, the blizzard was so bad, why, he brought the horse to school, and we all stayed all night. So we were all there all night, horse and all.
I read so much about the storms and how quickly they'd come up. Back at your house or at the school too, did you have lifelines between the
No,
different places?
We used to have what you call a rope line. You know, the older ones would be in front, and the little ones take a hold, you know, and they follow with a line, you know, kind of a rope line.
From where? From house to barn?
Uh-huh.
Huh?
Oh, yeah, but there, they used to have what you call a rope line from the house to the barn. Nearly everybody had that, you know. When the blizzard come up, and if you'd be in the barn, the blizzard come up, they just take hold of the rope, and they know where they were going.
People around here can hardly imagine that, but they were used, weren't they?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, there was rope lines between your barn and house. A lot of people had them.
What chores did you have?
What chores? Well, you didn't have very many chores to begin with. When you own 2 oxen and a cow, you don't have very many chores. You'd just be surprised at how that country is now. Of the herds of cattle there's some herds of cattle when you go from the Black Hills east from us, where there's thousands of black cattle, and they look just like dots. When my niece and her husband came, and of course he never was used to anything like that, and he said, he'd say, don't drive any further, I'm going to stay right here and I'm going to look this over. There'd be thousands and thousands of black cattle in those pastures, and the most beautiful buildings. And I tell you what they do. The people that own them live in those buildings just in summer. Then they go maybe to Florida or California or someplace, and then they put a tenant in there that looks after there. And they build what you call cattle sheds, just for cattle to go under, you know, because they're used to cold weather, and nobody puts cattle in barns no more anyway.
What crops did you raise?
Well, when we first went there, nothing, only wheat when we first went there. And then after a while, then these other people that came that had lived there before we came, they knew about corn, and then we raised what you call squaw corn, you know. We called it Indian corn at that time. It really did come from the Indians. The real name is Indian corn. The real name of squaw corn is Indian corn. They called it squaw corn. It comes from the Indians.
You might tell if my grandpa had to go to town for groceries.
Oh, yes, and my father used to walk for groceries, and of course those days there was no roads. You could cut across, and now you go around, it's about 20 miles, and at that time maybe 15 miles, and he used to walk for groceries and get groceries and carry them home in his bag. That was the only town those days.
How often would he have to do that?
Oh, about every other week or so.
Did you have a garden?
Oh, yes, we had a lot of garden.
What'd you raise in there, and how about water for that garden?
Well, we would, if it didn't rain, we'd bucket the water. You carried out of the creek. We was all along there was a nice creek and a lot of water, and you could bucket the water. You could water everything, and we mostly raised potatoes and cabbage and cucumbers. I can always remember that.
Did you raise all vegetables, like everything, like beans?
Well,
Oh, beans. You
beans,
talk about
don't
beans.
talk beans.
Says she's raised on beans.
I was raised on beans and cornbread, so don't ever talk beans to me.
How would you put these vegetables up then for the winter?
We had at that time, we built on. We took this claim shanty and built on another house. My father built on. There was an upstairs, one room below and an upstairs, and there was a living room and a bedroom and then 2 bedrooms upstairs, and he built that then. And he dug a cellar, you know, a dirt cellar, and everything kept in a dirt cellar, more than it does now. And we had apples in barrels, and we had cabbage in barrels, and potatoes in a little bin, and everything kept. But of course, you know, now everything is cement and things don't keep good. And big barrel of meat. We always had a lot of pork.
Salt pork or
Always salt pork, and then we'd take it out, and we had a little smokehouse, and we'd smoke it after that.
did you? When I said your father dug the well.
Yes. Do you know what a bucket well is?
Yes.
It's got a frame up over a hole, you know, it's a square, and has a frame over and a rope, and you turn them, and put the bucket down in, and you turn it, and it comes out.
How deep was that well?
Oh, about 12 or 13 feet. Didn't have to be very deep, because it was pretty near at the creek bank, you might know. You just little ways, and you'd have all kinds of water.
Was that a dangerous thing to dig? I've read stories about people who were trapped in wells which caved in Dakota.
Well, I don't know. I never heard of anybody anyway.
Where'd you go to church?
We went to Church Giselle. When we first went there was no church, but after we lived there about 2 years, well, then they built a church, and the church was built underground. And it was an underground church, and for quite a few years I remember that. When my mother was buried, she was buried from that church, and it was underground.
Now explain that underground church. Was it in the side of a hill or?
No. Why, I bet Edna knows yet where that church used to be.
Other sisters do.
Well, yes.
But it was stone and townhouse.
It was just built.
Like a basement.
It was just like digging a basement, only the top of it was made of rock and plaster, you know, cement and that. And you in the door, and you went right down in, and after you got in, it was just pews in it, and it's just like anything else. But I tell you, what used to be in there, swallows used to get in. You know those birds? That church used to be just full of swallows. Yes, I went to church there quite a number of years.
Weddings and funerals were performed there, and.
Oh yes. And then they built this frame church, and then the convent was built there. The very first convent in South Dakota was built there.
Excuse me, did they send Did they send missionaries from the old country to administer to the people in their native tongue, or did they send, where did the priests and so forth come from that administered to the people?
Well, I can't remember that, but I remember that the sisters came from St. Louis. That I know. But I can't just
But
where.
even, well, I still went to church yet there, though, the sermons were in the
German.
in general.
The sermons were in German?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, oh, yes.
German settlement.
You know when they threw the German books out of the school?
No.
First World War. Zip, out went all the books, no more German. And they taught German till then, and you could talk German and you could teach German in schools and all, and after that, not a word.
Did they have a special sermon on Sunday in German for the older people?
Yes.
Oh, it was all German.
All German.
All German.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
No English in the
No
sermon?
English for a long, long time. It was no English, no.
Now, was German spoken in the school also, or was that English?
In the sister school, they had classes of German.
Oh, in your school.
Oh, and no, that was all English.
That was English.
But all in the sister school, they always had a German class.
She couldn't talk English when she went to school.
Oh, when I went to school, I couldn't take a... I was pretty near 7 years old before I knew one word of English. And I can remember the first word of English that the teacher pointed out to me. He pointed out the chart, and there was a big pig on there. And he kept pointing, and I didn't want to tell him what it was. And he kept telling, what is it? I said, "Das ist Schwein!" And the kids all laughed, and I started to cry, and the teacher couldn't do a thing with me that whole day. And he says, "I better go home." And I cried all the way home. Yeah, I couldn't talk a word. I was pretty near 7 years old before I could talk a word of English.
Were there Swedes or Norwegians in your neighborhood too?
No, that's Minnesota,
Mhm.
where they are. No. Indian, there was few Indians, but they wandered through mostly. You could see them pretty near every day going through. And when the Indians first traveled, there was always two ride on a horse and one would walk. And they would hunt. And they would hunt with a slingshot. If you know, well, I'll tell you what a slingshot is like. Oh, I'd say it's about this long, and it was made of tin. And they used to shoot it with rocks in a spring, and they'd hunt like that. They'd kill and cook and eat on the way, you know. That's the way they lived. Of course, not now. They're all
And you used to see them have their Indian dances. You
They
know.
used to have, we used to always hear them. You could hear them for a long time when they pounded on that big leather. Well, it wasn't either, it was a hide. They'd stretch it over rocks with the hide would be up and the fur would be down, and they'd stretch and pile rocks out, and then they'd hit it with Indian hammers. You know what an Indian hammer is? No? Well, I'll tell you what an Indian hammer is. It's made out of a rock, and it's filed around where you put a piece of leather through and a handle on. And that's an Indian hammer. Oh, someday when I come, I'll bring you one.
Arthur's got a whole stack of them he's found on his land.
Yeah, my youngest son has a whole pile of them on his land there. The kids pick them up and they pile them up there.
Do you know what tribe they were?
Well, let's see, what other was there? Not a Sioux. I believe it was, they used to travel through from Fort Thompson to Fort Sisseton. And I believe it was the Sioux Indians.
You say they traveled between the forts.
Mm-hmm, yes. Of course, now they have fancy cars and everything, they still go through.
All
but-
over the Indian reservation.
Yes.
Those were.
Fort Thompson's a big Indian reservation. And then Stefan, you probably read about that. You sure read about that. Well, my nephew, his first year of learning how to teach, taught the Indians there, part of the Indians. It's Stefan. That's
What wild game was available for these Indians? You mentioned they used
Well-
their slingshots.
Oh, I don't know. Not so much of anything. Oh, maybe badger and
Coyote, fox, or anything?
they'd shoot gophers, and they was great on dogs. If you owned a dog, you had to keep it in, or they'd get it.
Were there pheasant in that country
No,
then?
not at those times. Oh, no.
Yeah, they've been introduced.
No, they've been there of late years. No, there was no pheasants much. But I do remember picking buffalo bones. That I remember. We used to burn them. Used to be buffalo through there, and kids used to hunt buffalo bones.
Did
we'd
the
burn.
Indians hunt buffalo?
Oh, I don't know. I tell you what, there used to be once in a great while there was wild boars there. Once in a great while you'd see one when we lived there, but that was maybe before we ever got there. It was.
Could you still see the buffalo wallows at that time?
Oh yes, Some of those places where Medicine Creek goes through, you still see a kind of a set off into the creek. And they said that was made by the buffalo, a kind of instead of a straight creek, it would be a kind of a offset and a kind of a deep hole like, and they said the buffalo made that, and that's still there.
Do you recall any old wedding customs or holiday customs that existed in Dakota when you were a girl?
A wedding? Yeah.
How'd they celebrate a wedding, for example?
Well, it isn't a solemn. I tell you what it is, how the weddings were there. It was real solemn in church and all, and then maybe they would carouse around and dance for 2 days and 2 nights and get drunk. But the church itself, you know what I mean, the custom
They
itself.
still do that, don't they?
Yeah.
Huh?
And it was a longer sermon and all. Now I've went to a lot. Now my folks, I have folks that aren't Catholic. I've went to weddings that wasn't Catholic, and Catholic weddings too. But there was so much more to it than there is now. 1, 2, 3, and you're married and you're gone. When it wasn't like that years ago.
How about holidays? What special holidays do you remember? How was Christmas observed?
Well, it was just like it is now.
Well, tell about Easter. Did you do Easter?
I think
4 days. Tell about it.
Did you have Easter eggs at Christmas time, or at Easter time, rather?
Yes, I was just telling my kids, I said, talk about Easter eggs. After we got older and had made hay and haystacks and all this, and we never knew what Easter dye was, but we always raised a lot of onions, and you know, onion peelings, it makes a nicer dye than onion peelings. It makes the prettiest brown eggs you ever saw. And we used to boil a water bucket of eggs. They was only worth about 5 cents a dozen, and we used to boil them and color them. And then we'd go and just take sides and go one on one side of the stack, one on the other, and play with those eggs, throw them at each other.
Did you have a Christmas tree at Christmas time?
Yes, I tell you what kind of Christmas tree we used to have. We used to go out along the creek and find a nice willow, and we'd cut it, you know, and didn't have any branches or anything else on like that. And we used to wrap it with paper and then trim it with popcorn or something like that. We had a tree, just a made tree, homemade tree.
Did you ever have a tree with candles on it?
Oh my, no. The only candles this one.
Later on.
Well, later on I did. When she was a little girl, I had candles. Yeah, she got on fire once.
We're even ahead of the candle story yet.
Yeah.
Let me turn this tape.
More fish than anybody ever saw.
Well, now, you'll have to tell me how he made his living fishing in South Dakota. I've never heard of a fisherman in South Dakota.
You didn't. Well, I tell you, there is this Medicine Creek that I'm talking about runs into Cottonwood Lake. We have a nice lake 3 miles from us, a beautiful lake. It's all built up and it's just pretty lake. and they have boats on it and everything. And this, at that time, there would be pike and pickerel and perch, these three fish, the best fish ever. And he would set a net across, and the fish would get in there, and sometimes in the evening and in the morning he'd have maybe 2 or 3 wash tubs full of fish to take out of that net.
Then where would he sell those?
Peddle them through the country. Peddle them, the boys would peddle them through the country. We'd clean them. We wouldn't scale them, but we would just clean them and wash them and put them in boxes, and they'd peddle them through the country.
Now, what kind of transportation did you have then?
Oh, horse and a cart. They used to peddle them. After a while, we had horses, you know, and we didn't. My father just really farmed with oxen about 2 years.
Did people who were going through Dakota in those days, did they still travel by what we'd call a covered wagon?
Yes, oh yes, and the Indians did. A lot of Indians went by covered wagon. Oh yes. There used to be a man thrashing for us at that time when they used to thrash with bundles, you know, and things like that, and now everything is combine. And there used to be Indians working on the thrashing rig. Used to work, but they were so lazy, you know, they'd work a while and then they'd go to town and drink, and then they'd come back and work some more, and most of them, they didn't have shoes. I can remember one time my brother came in and he wanted to know if I didn't have an old pair of shoes around someplace for that man that's hauling bundles. He said he's going barefooted and the thistles are high, and I said, I'll tell you. I said, you go out there in the shanty, in that keg is a pair of brown shoes, and if he can wear them, he can have them. And how I happened to have those shoes, when my oldest son went in the South Pacific, he went to Honolulu and he bought those shoes there, and he couldn't wear them. But he brought them home, and so he always threw them in there, and he says, the first man can wear these shoes can have them. And we gave them to that Indian. Oh,
Now, that's recent years.
yeah.
World War II.
Did you make your own clothing when you were a girl, or did you wear store-bought clothes?
Oh, my mother used to sew all our clothes by hand. And they brought boats of clothes, cloth from Germany. But I tell you what they used to bring. It was either white or brown. Now, if you didn't like either one of them, you was out of luck. You had to either wear white or brown. And my mother used to knit stockings. Oh, she's a great knitter. I used to could knit.
Did she have a sewing machine, though, you said later?
Oh, not those days, sewing machine.
Oh, I thought you said she had a sewing machine.
Oh, we did afterwards, yeah.
What kind of cloth was it?
Well, they called it linen, but now it might have been linen, but I can remember my father wearing white pants to work for years. I remember that. That in Germany, that's what they wore. And I have friends they're from Switzerland, and they said their men over in Switzerland wear them too.
Did you buy your shoes?
Oh yeah, we paid $1 a pair for them, and oh dear. But we never had stockings until my mother bought some yarn and knit stockings, but we always just wore our shoes barefooted. That's why we never went outside when it was cold, because we didn't have stockings or shoes.
How would you pass the time in the winter? This seems to me as though that would be a tremendous problem under those circumstances.
Well, we used to have corn games. We used to shell by hand. We used to shell this squaw corn, and I don't know what it is. It's some kind of a corn game they got up, and we used to play that a lot with corn kernels. I don't know, some way. And after a while, it got so we had cards. My father brought some games along from Germany, but of course, we didn't know much about them.
Do you remember any other games that you played, and is there any similarity between the games that you played and that children play today?
No, you know, I believe it was great on cards. My father brought different games along from Germany, and it was cards too, but not cards like here, but it was cards.
And play baseball, the boys?
Oh, yes. Ball.
What did they call it?
Huh?
What did they call their ball game that they played? Did they call it baseball or?
No, it was baseball.
It was baseball. Did you have dolls?
Dolls.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we had dolls. My mother brought dolls from Germany, yes. They made dolls. There was places in Germany that used to make dolls. Yeah. And I tell you how they were made. There was just, the head was just a doll's head was made. And the rest of the doll you made yourself. See, you made the body and stuffed it. But my mother brought doll heads. I was quite a big girl and I still had heads of dolls.
Did you play hopscotch? Did you skip a rope? Any of that sort of
Oh
thing?
yes, and I tell you what we had there. We lived close to a big hill. And that hill, you could go down, you didn't have to have snow, you could go on the grass. It was steep enough to come down on the grass. And my father made us a sled. And he made it out of 2 pieces of lumber. And it held 7 people, and you can imagine what a fight was. Who's going to pull it up on that hill? We didn't like to pull up on it.
Did you have books in your house, or was there a library in connection with the school?
Yes.
Could you bring school books home?
Oh yes, you see, after this South Dakota was proved up, then it was made into counties, and we was in Han County, and it's Han County yet, and Miller was the county seat, and it is yet. See, because it wasn't Dakota Territory, it was North and South Dakota, and we lived in South Dakota in Han County.
And how about books?
Well, we had regular books, but nobody ever knew anything about high school, but we had books.
Did you read books at home for entertainment during the winter?
Yes.
You remember what some of them were?
My oldest brother was a great reader, but I'll tell you, when he left, he went to back to Illinois when he was 16 years old, and he was a great reader, and he took all his books with him, the storybooks he used to have, so we never got a hold of him. He was a great reader.
Did you sing?
Sing? Oh, no. Heavens, no.
No singers in the family at all?
Oh, yeah, I got a singer right there.
That's next generation.
Yeah.
What about physicians? What about doctors out there? What happened when you got sick?
Oh, well, we always had a doctor in Redfield. Used to be Dr. Birch. Very first doctor I ever knew was Dr. Birch in Redfield.
He'd come out to see you when there was illness in the
Horse
family.
and buggy, they'd go any place.
What illnesses were prevalent or common then?
Well, you mean sickness, diseases? Well, children's diseases like they all have. I had scarlet fever, and we all had scarlet fever. All of us kids about the same time. Mumps. I had mumps twice, yes, once on one side, and when I grew up to be 21 years old, I had them on the other side.
Diphtheria?
No. But in Germany, my sister and my 2 older brothers died in Germany with black diphtheria, you see. And then my father and mother was left without any children. They didn't have children then until this set of children then. So there was 12 children.
Do you recall any diphtheria in your neighborhood in Dakota?
No, not that I know of. I do when we moved back and lived in Illinois. I remember diphtheria, but I can't remember out there.
How about smallpox?
Never heard of them.
How was that doctor equipped? Did he bring his black bag to the house? And you remember
Yes.
what he might have carried in it?
Yes,
Did he made his own medicines probably?
Well, no, they had several doctors in Redfield at that time, but Dr. Birch was always our doctor.
How about surgery? Any surgery performed by the
I
doctor
can't- I
that
can't.
you recall?
Even remember.
Was there a hospital nearby?
Yes, there was a hospital in Redfield years ago. My father got sick once, they put him in that hospital and was just a frame building with, I think it had about 7-8 rooms in it. I remember that. And at that time I lived in Illinois and I went out there and I think Edna was, let's see, Amber was 2 years old and you was older. I took the 2 kids and I went out there. He got real sick, but he got better.
We read about the vigilante days in the West. What do you recall about enforcement of the law in Dakota?
Well, not so much there, but I do remember we kids always being so afraid of the Indian. At that time, there was Indian War west, you know, and we kids used to. At night we'd go to bed. We'd always cover up our heads. We'd think, well, if the war was on, they wouldn't see us.
Crime was not a problem, though.
No.
You ever recall anybody going to jail for any offense?
No,
or?
I don't think there was even a jail. No.
Do you worry about anybody coming along and stealing your property?
No.
You ever lock your house?
Oh, no, I don't lock it now. Yeah, the Betsy. My door, I haven't even a key to my door out home. Phew. Don't you bother you.
I've read, let's go back and mention again a couple of things that you talked about before on this tape, and I didn't think of these questions at that time. Let me ask them now. I've read that sometimes in the winter, out there in the what's been labeled the sod house frontier, that some people would bring livestock into the house with them. Did you ever experience that?
Oh, yeah, lots of times. If it got real bad and you didn't have a barn, you'd bring your cow in. Sure.
Really, there was no other choice, was there?
No, there was no other choice. It's just the same way going to a schoolhouse and you brought a horse along, where could you put it? You just brought it in.
And did you have a sod building for the cattle, for the oxen?
No, we had what you call well, it was a kind of underground, and it had I tell you what the roof was made of. Pieces of board and hay on top of it, but the cattle went down in, like, I can remember that real well. After we had some more cattle in there, but
Were insects a problem?
well, no, not as much as later on.
Did you ever see any great movements of grasshoppers or locusts?
Later on, oh my, shovel them up with a shovel.
Now you say later on. About when would that be?
I was trying to think, the grasshopper, yeah. When you got married, you was what, in the 30?
That was in 34.
34. In 33 it was terrible. Oh,
And
yeah.
terrible dust storms. We know.
Dust storms, and you know the grasshoppers would be so bad that you couldn't see the sun.
Now they'd strip your crops?
Oh yes, they'd take everything going. But not as much as some of those beetles you probably heard about. Locusts and beetles, they're the worst.
What time of year would they come?
Well, everything more the heat of the sun. Everything when it was the warmest. Didn't bother anything overnight, you know. In the night when it was dark or anything cooler, and it wouldn't bother.
Your daughter mentioned the dust storms. What were they like?
Dust storms right there now. You know, in my sister-in-law wrote last week, and she said that she was talking to a lady, and she said her folks live at Winner, and that is near Pierre, the capital, and she says they had neither snow or rain there, and the dust storm, and down in Nebraska where her sister lives, the dust storm's so bad they can hardly see across the
Oh,
road.
prairie fires. They got prairie
And
fires.
1,080 acres of prairie burnt, hay and all, stacks of hay and all burned. That's already this year.
Were prairie fires a problem when you were a
Oh
girl?
my, do I remember the awful prairie fire once when I was a little girl. And that's when my mother was alive yet. And sometimes they would come, well, from Wessington, even further than that, towards Mitchell, and it wasn't very many people living there, and it would make a clean sweep and maybe go clear up, and the railroad track at Zell would stop it. It would hit the railroad track, and, well, I'll imagine it's 100 miles or so. And if we'd see a smoke and everything, everybody would take everything out of their house and carry it and put it on the plowed ground, you know. And then you knew that at that time, of course, we lived in a frame house. We didn't live in sod house. And you take your furniture and your bedding, you carried it out on plowed ground and plow around it, see, and that would keep it from going on fire. Everybody was fighting fire, but you might just well sat down because it was just terrible.
You didn't tell him about the dust storms.
Oh, dust storm. Sometimes it'd blow 2 or 3 days in the sand. You see, that's a sandy country. 'Tisn't black, 'tisn't gumbo. Now out home they call this gumbo. See, there it's sandy. And when it blows there, in the grade ditches and all the sand, solid fine sand would be that deep.
The fence is covered.
Fences and all just covered.
About drifts of about 3 feet high. Then,
Oh yes,
of,
just solid
sand.
sand.
What years would these be? You might want to get the identification. What years were these, Mrs. Schaffer?
The dust storms?
Yeah, when did they start? They weren't when you were children.
Oh, no, this is no. It wasn't no cultivation much. And you know, you don't have
In the
dust
30s, I'd
storms.
say.
This
Early
was in the
30s.
30s.
I was teaching.
But
I'd go
then,
to school, I'd have to clean off the desks because it'd be that much dirt on the desk and on the windows. You'd have to clean it,
Yeah.
you'd never start to teach.
an inch or so of dust
Yes.
on the desk.
Yeah.
On the windowsills and desks.
But then when you were a girl, because of a lack of cultivation, the dust storms were not a problem, even after the
No.
prairie fires had
No,
come
you
through.
see, when there wasn't much cultivation, there was no dust storms. As everybody plowed and raised stuff, well, then your dust storms start. But now, I don't think they have, there's cultivation there now, but right around there's no dust storms. But west and south towards Pierre, there is still dust storms.
When did you first install a windmill? Did you have a windmill eventually on your place?
Yes, we had a windmill, sure.
Do you remember about what time you installed that?
Well, when we moved up there on the hill, and Frank had a windmill, we lived with my brother, and he had a windmill, and then we went.
But in your early years, did you have a windmill?
No, it was all pump or else a bucket well. No, in early years, but in later years, everybody had a windmill in later years. Lots of wind, so you had a lot of water.
How about fencing? When did fencing first come into that part of the country?
Well, I don't know. Gradually, more so all the time, even now. But I can remember fences. Of course, years ago there was no roads or fences, but they have fences now.
How much land did Grandpa Katie get on his?
Well, everybody just got 160 acres when it proved up that you couldn't get any more than that.
Now that was under one of the homestead laws.
Yes, that was a homestead law. You could either go under that or a tree claim, either one. There was two. If you planted 5 acres of trees Why, and then you could live there 2 years, and you'd prove up, and that would be your land.
And you
Or
already
else,
told that, I think.
or else you'd take up the other kind, you homestead the other kind, and that, you had to have a little cultivation and a little frame house, a wooden house, and that, there was 2 kinds there.
Then, did you pay a fee for this land besides?
$150.
When you were a girl in that part of South Dakota, natural timber was what, almost non-existent?
Oh, no,
Wasn't
there
any?
was nothing. They called it the plains and the plain states, and now, of course, they plant trees and they have shelter belts. Everybody has a shelter belt, and I think that's why it don't blow much no more, around there, because everybody has trees. Everybody plants trees.
Shelter belt would be the same thing as we'd call a windbreak here.
Yes.
You plant trees to the west side of the house, and
Yeah.
this would.
Yeah, I planted so many trees, now I can't even raise a garden. The tree roots has got it taken over, and you can't even plant any. Nothing will grow unless you plant in a flower box. Nothing grows anymore.
Now, you've reminded me of a question I should have asked at the first part of the tape. When your father first started to build that sod house, he got his sod by running a plow
Yeah.
through the sod. Now, that of course had to be sod that had never been cut before, isn't that right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And it was the structure of the grass roots that held the sod together
Yes,
so you could
see,
build the house.
You put the sod this way, and the next time you put the sod that way. And you lay it
Tell
just,
the tape higher what you need.
Uh-huh.
You
yeah, you
need-
see.
at angles to each other.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right
That'll
angles.
stick to each other, and they have it 4 inches deep, or else it'll break,
When that sod house was being built, did you use water?
Oh, no, you don't have
No
to
water,
do
okay.
nothing. Oh, no, that stays.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you don't have to have.
Put it down as it came from the soil.
Yeah, you just bring that up, and then you have to have a frame for a little window, and you build right around that frame, and you put your little window in
Were there wildflowers on the prairie in the spring?
there. Yes, more so than now. We used to have beautiful little wildflowers around, a lot of prairie, and a lot of pretty flowers.
Ask, tell what the flowers are.
You know what a pask is? We used
State
to
flower.
call, they're a little bit on the order, just like a tulip, only they're all one color, and they are beautiful. And we used to go and pick bouquet, and now you can hardly find one. And they were just beautiful. They grow about so high,
About a foot
and they're
high.
about this big around. The flowers about something like a tulip, only not as large.
They're all orchid colors.
They're orchid, and they were just beautiful.
And there was violets.
And there used to be blue violets that, you come to a bottomland and it was just blue, that purplish blue, just covered.
Cactus. I love the cactus.
Oh, and the flowering cactus. Makes me laugh to see somebody planting cactus here. Oh, Lord. Cactus. Why, I saw more cactus in bloom, and I think Edna stepped in lots of them. Oh, there was 2 kind of cactus. There's the kind that comes in lumps, and they bloom yellow. And then there's the kind that grow flat, and they bloom red. They have red flowers, beautiful flowers, but who's going to pick them? They're just beautiful, but who can go near them? You step on them, it just burns like fire. And those others that bloom yellow, you step on them, you can't get the stickers out. They're just terrible.
Then most of these disappeared with cultivation, I imagine.
Yes, you don't have many, like I say, those years, and there wasn't much cultivation. It was beautiful flowers, wild flowers, and they used to be what we used to call them nowadays buttercups, but I don't believe they were. They were yellow and blue ones, and they were just beautiful. You don't see a thing now.
Black-eyed Susan.
And,
I think a wild sweet pea.
yeah. And then there was another flower that smells as sweet as anything, and they were orange, and we never knew what they were, and you know them. I don't know the name of them, and they were beautiful. Just all kinds of pretty flowers after everybody went in there and plowed up. was done for him.
How tall was the grass when you were a girl?
Oh, real tall, and it was there for years, you know, and then everybody brought a scythe along, and that's all they did.
Well, tell how small.
Oh, there was two kinds of grass. There's what you call a buffalo grass, and only grows that high, and
About
it's beautiful.
6 to 8 inches high, perhaps?
Uh-huh. And then there's the wheat grass, and then the slough grass. The slough grass is what we used to burn.
Slough grass was the tallest of all?
Mm-hmm.
Half as tall as a man, perhaps?
Oh, yes, and we'd cut that and twist it, you know, make hay twists out of it.
Did you ever get lost on the prairie?
Oh, no.
You'd always find your way back.
But you know, people here, if they gotta walk a little ways, what a face they make. I used to walk 3 and 4 miles to get the mail, and if I want to go and visit a lady, a friend of ours, go there, it was 5 miles I used to walk.
Where would you get your mail?
Well, we didn't have mail at first, but then after it got established, so we had a route go through there, and our post office was Helmick.
But you still had to walk.
Had to walk.
You had to walk into town to...
No, to that.
Oh, no, it was out in the country. It was straight west of where we lived. About 3 miles and 3.5 maybe.
Now, you called it Helmick, I think.
Helmick, uh-huh.
Now, was that just a person's house, or...
Yeah, just a person's house, yes. And from there, they came with horses and a kind of a wagon, mail wagon, and they brought it from Orient and from Howell. From Orient to Howell and from Howell to Helmick. And that's the way they carried the mail. And it only came 3 times a week.
Now, if you wanted to mail a letter, you'd have to go to the same place then.
Oh, yeah.
Leave it for the pickup.
Well, you went after your mail and you left your letter there. And next time he come, well, you be sure and be taken.
Now, I'm curious, how'd you pay for this?
What?
How did you pay for the postage? What,
Oh, you had stamps just the
Did
same. I think at home I still have 1 and 2 cent stamp. You get a letter. You know what a 2 cent stamp looks like.
No.
Not anymore. No. I read so often that that loneliness was one of the great problems for people who lived in Dakota Territory and Nebraska. Do you ever remember being lonely?
Out there?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know. After I was a girl and grown up, there was other people moved in there, and there was other girls there, and we used to visit together.
Your mother died when she was 10.
You see, my mother died when I was 10 years old, and our family was kind of divided then. Now, my oldest brother, he went to work for a man by the name of Pasufsky after my mother died. And then my next brother went to Keeler's to herd sheep. And my 4-year-old brother, my father gave him to some friends there to keep him because he had the other children. And then I was 10 years old and I stayed home with the 2 other little boys. My youngest brother was 1.5 years old, and then my other brother was 3 years old.
Well, then you didn't have time to be lonely.
No.
No.
So, you see, and lots of times I didn't like to stay home alone, and I used to have my father made a little wagon, and with a top over, and the kids would sit in there, and I'd pull it over there, and we'd play. You know, that country had rocks, beautiful rocks. You know, you could go on a little hill and pick out just all kinds of pretty stones, and you play with.
Okay.
You're in business again on side number 3.
Would you go out and find the Indian arrowheads and hammers that you've talked about?
Yes, we. Right there. Well, my oldest son found quite a few things like that. He used to look for them, but we never bothered much about them. And then, you know, after he come back from the World War II, he had quite a few relics, and he sold them all to another man. And so I hadn't even got anything, I don't believe, there that he brought from when he was over in the South Pacific that I know of. Edna has some, where did you get the shells from, Edna?
Everything.
Yeah, where you got shells.
If you had leisure time, extra time when you were a girl, how did you like to spend it?
How did we spend it?
Suppose you had a couple hours when you didn't have any chores to do, when the rest of the family didn't have to be tended to.
You want me to tell you what we used to like?
What'd you like to do?
We used to go on the boat. My father had a boat, and we used to go on the boat and go crawfishing, if you know what a crawfishing is. We used to go crawfishing, and they are really good to eat.
Now, how'd you catch those?
Well, you put just a little piece of meat and a rock on a stone, and you throw it in the water, and you sit there, and you look down, and this would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and sometimes you'd have a bunch just like that. You could hardly lift it up. They would get this piece of meat, and then the other one get hold of him, and then hold of him, and and you just take it and shake them off in the bucket and go and fish again.
I've caught them the same way.
Did you?
Now, you boil these?
Oh yes, you throw them in a boiler of boiling water, and they turn red.
Uh-huh.
It's just something like these big, did you get here?
Shrimp.
Yeah, shrimp, or anything. And then you clean them, you just pull the tail off, and you have all those little crooked things, and you brown butter. Oh, there isn't anything tastes better than that. Oh.
What else do you like? What else do you recall doing when you had spare time?
Wading and swimming and things like that. We were regular water ducks, which creek was there. And
Did you ever go to town for entertainment of any sort?
no,
Mhm.
absolutely no.
An emphatic no, as a matter of fact.
No, that's right. Never went to town after I was maybe 15, 16 years old. Maybe I went along to town once in a while, but who wants to ride 15, 16 miles in a lumber wagon? That's just too much like fun. I did once in a while. I had uncle and cousins living in Redfield. We used to go visit there once in a while.
You ever see a medicine show or a stage show in Redfield?
Well, not exactly in Redfield. Sometimes out in the country, the Indian used to have them.
How about the first automobile that you recall?
First automobile, let's see. Yes, I remember that very well. My brother Frank had a Model T, and it had, what did they have at that time, kind of built on the side, and if you didn't have that, it wouldn't run. What was it?
Battery?
Yes, a kind of a battery on the side of the running board,
Yes.
and if you didn't have that, it wouldn't run. Well, that was I rode in one of them. That was our first car. My father didn't buy it, my brother. I think he paid $600 for it.
And of course, you could use that only when the weather was dry, I'll bet.
Pretty much so, yeah.
I can remember like that myself. We only go on the road with these.
Yeah.
Didn't have any roads, to mount anything. Of course, it isn't like now.
Was there early telephone service through that part of
No.
Dakota?
No telephones.
And how about electrical service? How about electric power?
I don't remember when we always had gas lamps, if you know what a gas lamp is.
Kerosene lamp.
Gasoline lantern, like a
Yeah.
Coleman lantern.
But you had a kerosene lamp.
We had kerosene lamps, and then generally in the living room we had one of those gas lamps, but otherwise just lanterns and kerosene lamps. So
You didn't have electricity through there even when I got married.
no, we didn't have electricity through there for a long time.
Do you recall anybody using a battery system where they'd keep the batteries in the cellar, you know, the old Delco systems.
Delco's, yeah.
Wind charger.
Yeah.
No.
Well, we had a wind charger
A
at
Delco
first.
system.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We had a wind charger at first, you know, and that's how we got the lights. We had lights all right in the house, but we charged it with the wind. We had a little bit of a contraption outside the house, a little ways, and that charged the batteries, and we had lights.
Yeah, but my Uncle Frank had Delco system.
Oh, well, yes, my brother had a big system. He had lights, and he had an engine in the basement, you know, and batteries, and he had lights all over, even in the barn. But of course, when I moved away with the kids up on the hill, why then we had one of those small wind chargers, and we had lights from that.
Did you have a radio?
Yes, that had battery radio.
What'd you like to listen to on the radio?
Oh, I was trying to think. We didn't have a radio so much as we had a phonograph, and what was that we always listened to so much, Edna? I was trying to tell you those two.
Two black crows.
Two black crows.
Yes, and all that.
But that, now you're talking about later years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. Yes, we had that.
Pete, I have some key words here, and I can be asking Mrs. Schaffer some questions while you regroup your thoughts on the frontier. Would that be all right?
Yes, that we had a phonograph, and I remember buying that. And we thought that was the greatest thing.
Mrs. Schaffer, I'm going to ask you I'm just going to give you some words, and you just give me your impressions off the top of your head. Depression,
Depression. Hard times. So.
which ones? You lived through more than one.
I guess so. Well, I tell you, you want me to tell you one real bad one? Edna wasn't there then. The boys and I lived up the hill. I was farming with the boys then.
What year? About?
I was trying to think.
After I was married to you.
Oh, yes. I tell you, Eddie is 50 years old and he was 17 years old. I remember he was to a ball game. And an awful hailstorm come up. An awful windstorm. It got just like night. And so my oldest son run in and he says, Mom, you got some chickens out there in that wagon box. Come, get the tub and we'll get those chickens in the house. I think it's going to storm terrible. So we run out and we picked up the old hens and put them all in a wash tub and carried them in the kitchen. And of course by that time it started to blow and we couldn't get any more chickens in. But it started to blow and it started to hail. And we run for the cave. Nearly everybody had a storm cave.
Mm-hmm.
We run for the cave.
This was during the Depression this happened?
Yes, during the Depression. We had one field of fairly good oats. And when we got out of this cave, when the storm was over, when we got out of this cave, the hail was that deep.
A foot deep, would you say?
And there wasn't a fence any place. It just took fences and all. And if anybody wasn't near the house, they run and climbed under a piece of tin or anything to keep from getting hit. And I remember our calves, they was just a sight. The hair and the hide off. And it came from the south and it took the south side of the roof of our house. Everybody, and it was just a strip, just a small strip. And everybody come to see it. And it knocked out the south windows out of the house and one on the west, but took the roof off of the house, left just the lumber under the shingles, and the water all run through the upstairs and from the upstairs down into the living room. And I remember having the linoleum rug in the living room. It was swimming around the water. And we had a papered living room and all the wallpaper was off. We just didn't know which way to look. And where my son was playing ball in Zell, that was 10 miles, and they heard it. And they said, just as quick as it was over with, why, they was gonna see how far it went. And it just went, it started about 1.5 miles northwest from us, and it went right through there and wasn't not even 1 mile wide in most places, and about 5 miles long. And I tell you, it just took everything.
Do they out on the prairies, do they have this terrific change of weather? Is there an inversion of hot air and cold air?
Oh, yeah.
What's that, is there a name for that? Yeah.
You're not gonna have a tornado or what?
Well, but there's, maybe it's further out. Pete, are you familiar with that? What's that? Where the temperature will drop or rise as high as 70 degrees?
It's the wind that comes up along the east side of
Chinook
the
or-
Chinook.
Oh, a
right.
Chinook.
wind. Oh,
Do
Chinook wind.
you have Chinook winds?
Oh, you mean a Chinook wind?
Yes, do you have those?
Oh, yes.
Can you remember anything particular where the temperature made a tremendous
Oh,
jump or
yes,
decline?
where it would drop, maybe it'd be either 80 hot, and then it would go cold, or else from cold get hot. Oh, yes, it would drop.
Okay.
He asked you about the depression. I don't think she
Yeah.
understood you.
Do you remember the depression of the 30s? I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
How about some of the other depressions before the 1930s?
You want, in the 30s, when everybody had to kill their cattle and bury them and had nothing to eat for them, boy, we lived there then.
Were there depressions prior to this that you remember, or panics, or recessions?
No, not so much, but I remember that they allowed us so much feed for so many cattle, and the rest of the cattle had to be shot and buried, because you couldn't only keep so many. We lived there then.
And about the WPA.
Yeah, or the men generally worked on WPA,
Because there was nothing. I'll tell you, there was nothing.
Do you remember the Spanish-American War and the boys going to the Spanish-American War?
My oldest brother was in the Spanish-American War.
Do you remember?
He was in Puerto Rico, and my cousin was in the Philippines.
Do you remember them leaving and the patriotic fervor and everything in the community?
No, because my brother was living with these people in Rochelle, Illinois. You see, he wasn't home after my mother died. He went with this man, and he had made his home there. He never was home once in a great while.
How about World War I? Do you remember that? Those occasions that led up to it, and the
Not much about World War I, you
Oh,
see.
Illinois then.
Just World War II. I had 2 boys in the Marines.
Pete, one other question. I'm going to give it back to Pete because I see he's writing again here. I'm letting him regroup his thoughts. But how and why did your parents leave Germany and come here?
Well, I'll tell you, my father said that he didn't want his boys to be soldiers in Germany, and that's why he left Germany. But the boys got to be soldiers anyway when they got over here.
What was his occupation in Germany?
Fishing.
Fishing.
And he served in the German Army. Didn't he?
He served in the German army.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
he did.
And did they have relatives out in the plains and the Dakotas, or did?
Well, I'll tell you what my family consists of. My father had 1 brother. There was just 2 boys. My mother had 1 brother. That was just 2 of each.
How he happened to come to Redfield, though, you tell him.
Well, how he wanted to come to Redfield? Well, the reason he came to Redfield, he come from New York to Minnesota, and he heard about people going to Minnesota, working along the river for some kind of jobs, and he was going to build himself a house, and he came to Tracy, Minnesota, and he was standing there getting lumber to build himself a house. And this man he was ordering lumber from was German, and then there was a man came and tapped him on the shoulder. He says, "Don't do that." He says, "With a family, small children," he says, "you'll never make a living here." He says, "Why don't you go where they have land?" And this was this Mr. Gabinski. And he said, Why? Oh, he says, you go west to Dakota Territory and you could get land. You can get 160 acres of land for about $150 if you want to live there. Well, he thought that sounded pretty good. He didn't take the lumber. He went, loaded up, and landed in the Dakota Territory. Where else we'd been in Minnesota.
And when he died, how much land did he own?
Oh, he owned quite a lot of land, but then
More farms.
Yeah.
Well, preaching the boy.
I got a brother out there that owns a plenty. He's right across the road from where I am, and a son, and he feeds cattle. And he's the one that has the 8 boys and 2 girls.
Of those families that settled in Dakota in your neighborhood, and at about the same time you settled there, do you recall that any of them gave up and came back east?
Well, let's see. Yes, I'll tell you who gave up there one time and lost his life. And there was a man by the name of Erickson. He was an old bachelor, and he made himself a little shanty out there, and he owned that land. Edna, that Ellis has lived there once, and he owned that land first. And then if you lived there and you didn't prove up on it, they call them squatters. Somebody else would come and take it away from you, and that's how those Ellises moved there. And they left. They went to California. And we grew up and were children together. And last fall, the last one of those Ellis boys died, and his daughter sent me a obituary.
The majority of people who homesteaded then must have stayed.
Oh yes, they stayed.
Would you say that the greatest attraction was the inexpensive land, plus
Yeah.
the fact that it was,
Yes, I think so.
plus the fact that it was pretty good land then?
It was good land. Now, there isn't better land if it rains. Of course, I think this year they'll fare out fairly good right around there. Last fall we had rain and rain and snow and rain, and then they had a lot of snow, and it's just now melted and the rivers are high. You got floods out there now.
What would happen during the summer when the crops would fail? Did you have a crop failure? Did you ever have a crop failure?
Crop failures. Many a one.
What would you do after the crop had failed? How would you get by the winter in the next year?
People had, in years after that, people didn't depend a lot on the crops, and they don't to this very day. It's mostly a ranch. Everybody has a lot of cattle. You go through there and everybody has cattle. Hardly anybody has less than 100 head of cattle. And they depend a lot on that.
But it took people a little while to learn this then, didn't it?
Yes, it did. They found out that they couldn't do just one kind of farming. They had a... But now last year, it's just like this. Last year, the small grain was all right, and the corn was a failure. That's the way it is. Just when the rain came for the small grain, well, the rain didn't come when the corn was a failure. So my son that feeds cattle, he had to buy most of his corn to feed. Otherwise, why they don't hardly sell any grain, they feed it. You know. They have silos and feed cattle. All he does is press a button and it goes and feeds itself. It's all automatic.
What's the loveliest thing you remember about your girlhood on the Great Plains?
Out there? Oh, I don't know. I think buggy riding. We had nice driving horses in later years than buggies, and we used to go out riding. Other girls and us go together. I remember one time. This girl is still living, and she's living in Tacoma, Washington. I don't hear from her very often. She had a brother and a sister died last winter. But she and I, we used to go together, and I had one horse and a buggy, and she drove 2 horses, and oh, she had a swellest driving team, and we used to go. And her dad used to be kind of strict, But if she said she's going down to Shady's, it was all right. But of course, he didn't know where she went when she got down to Shady's. So she'd come and pick me up, and then we'd go places. And so one time, she said to me, she says, you know, there's something doing down to Mill's schoolhouse. Let's go and see it. And it was a schoolhouse, but they was having church. In the Congregational parish it was a little. Of course, now they got a lovely church, but at that time they had in the school. So they had some kind of revival meeting or something anyway. After dinner, why, Kate and I, we went. And she said, it's getting awful black looking. It looks like it's going to storm. She says, you hang on to the lines and I'll tie up the horses. And we went in, and we wasn't in there very long and started to get blacker and blacker. And she says, just stay in the back of the church. She says, it might get bad. And we got out, we untied the horses, and you know, we went, I think she galloped the horses most of the time to get down to our house. Oh, we caught in the awful storm, and it wasn't rain, it was dust. It was just a regular dust storm. I remember that. Yeah, we used to have a lot of fun going different places. Skating in wintertime. A lot of ice.
And didn't you say the boys used to have ice boat?
Oh yes, you boys. I had a brother that was a beautiful skater. Oh yes, he used to.
But an ice boat, you said he used to go clear down the creek to the lake?
Yes, and ice
Sail
fishing
on
and things like that.
The ice boat had a sail on it?
Hmm?
The ice boat had a sail on it?
Say, let me tell you about this sail business one time. Frank built a sailboat, and it was just a little bit of snow. And the wind came up from the south, and he wanted to know who'd ride with him. Nobody wanted to ride with him, and so I said, well, I'd ride with him. And we went for about a mile and a half. He'd stand and hang on to the sail, and I sat down, squatted down, and we went north. And you know, when we got that far, we hit a ravine, and there we were, stuck. Oh, boy. And it was cold as heck, and about that much snow. There we were, and we kept looking and looking south to see if anybody was coming after us. Nobody came after us, and we had to walk. I tell you, I never got so cold in my life.
What's the coldest you remember out there?
There?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we go to church 40 below zero
40 below.
after we had a car.
Now, people maintain that that's a different kind of cold than we
Oh,
have
yes,
here. Do you believe
I
that?
tell you, if it's 10 below zero here, why, it's colder than it'd be 25 back there. It's a dry cold.
And you used to go to church in bobsled.
Oh, yes, we used to go to church in bobsleds lots of times. Just to wrap up and lots of times throw a couple of hot bricks or rocks in the sled and go to church.
Do you believe people were more self-sustaining and self-sufficient in those
Yes.
days than they are now?
Well, I tell you, they didn't need money in both pockets. They was lucky if they had it in one. Those days. The kid thought he had a lot of money when he had 10 cents. Let anybody give him 10 cents now.
How could he spend money in those days? If a child in your part of South Dakota had money,
Well,
how would he spend it?
Well, lots of us kids never went to town, but if we had little spending money like that, why, we'd give it to my father, and he'd bring us what we wanted. We were great on mouth organs. That was the country with the mouth organ music. I had a brother that used to go out and play for dances on the mouth organ. That was a great mouth organ country.
Did you make some of your own toys? What
they-
toys do you remember making?
Oh,
perhaps?
washboard mostly. That I can remember. We used to play on the washboard. I remember my mother making cheese, though. That used to be a great thing, making cheese. She,
That's how she made it. That's kind of interesting. This is kind of disconnected. Will you?
you make it, well, it's made out of sour milk. and you let it get fairly hot so it isn't too sloppy, and you strain it, and then she'd make little flat balls, that maybe hold in your hand, and she had a board up there, and she'd lay them up there on a board. But she saved the whey from this milk, see, she wouldn't, and after that was there 6-7 days, those cheese. We used to go and swipe, and we used to like to chew on them when they were hard. She would take them down and dip them in this way and wrap them in a cloth and then put them back up there. And maybe leave another 6-7 days and then do that again. Do it 3 times and then pack them in a jar, and they used to eat that, and would get yellow, and you could just cut it and look something like butter. That white curdly cheese would turn just like that and look just like butter. I remember that, but we used to like it when it was hard. We used to like to chew it. I didn't like it. It was kind of a cheesy, stinky, cheesy smell. I didn't like that. It smelled more like Limburger to me.
Do you ever make any candy at home?
Candy? Oh yes, we used to make candy. But my father never let us have sugar to make candy, but when he'd go away, we kids made candy. And I'll never forget, my brother and I, we made some candy, and we had a great big dog. And we always kept our washing machine behind the house. So we cooked this candy, and wouldn't get hard, so we put it in a long pan, we set it on this old washing machine. And we went in the house and played, and the kids had roller skates and played in the house on the floor, and pretty soon we thought of the candy. We went to look, and the candy was gone. We couldn't think where the candy went. We looked down the road a ways, and there laid the dog. He jumped on that candy to eat it, and he got his front paws in, and he ran away with a pan of candy. Oh, that sticky candy, if that wasn't a mess. The dog and the candy. Oh. Of course, we didn't know what to do, so we got it all cleaned up and got the dog all scrubbed up, and then we went and buried in some water for a long time to get that stuff off. It was a mess. We didn't know beans about making candy. We thought we did, but we got the candy business.
Did you have a newspaper nearby?
Oh yes, we had a newspaper. Mm-hmm. It came from Minneapolis. And it came through the mail, and we'd get it maybe a couple of times a week or so.
That would be a German language paper, I would assume.
And
Was it German? Well, yes, because Grant and Shady could read English, couldn't they?
my father had no education at all. The only one could read. My mother had a nice education. She could read, and after my mother died, why then they changed it off to an English one. See, and the boys always read to my father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they always read.
Barely talk English.
He never talked English, you know. After he was there a while, he could talk English. But
Very well.
Was the Grange active in your part of South Dakota?
Grange.
Mm-hmm. The Farmer's Grange. Did your father belong to the Grange?
Oh, not very much
Mm-hmm.
those days. Hardly anybody belonged to anything.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to
Later
me,
years of Farmers Union.
yeah, the later
Very
years
popular.
was Farmers Union, and it is yet. But otherwise, there never was much.
Was the schoolhouse pretty much the center of social activity in your neighborhood?
Yes, they used to have literaries and spelling bees and things like that. They had box socials and things like that. And of course, that schoolhouse was kind of abandoned then. Then they built a bigger school, little ways south of there, and that was a larger school, and it had a basement in it, and oil heaters and things. Well, I tell you,
Better repeat the question first.
Right.
How did Zell, the town?
it was St. Mary's first. That was the name of it, St. Mary's.
What happened?
Well, nobody seems to know why they ever named it Zell. To this very day, nobody
It was
knows.
older than Redfield.
Oh no, Redfield's older. No. And then we had a church, you see, and the train come through from Redfield through Zell and on then. But there was no train in any further than Redfield for a long time. And then it came to Zell.
Now, as I understand it, this home that you homesteaded, this land that you homesteaded, is how many miles west or east of Zell?
West, no, I'll tell you, it's 2 miles east and 8 miles west.
Oh, now,
No, I'll take it back. 2 miles, 8 miles south and 2 miles west.
8 miles south and 2 miles west.
Yeah,
But
it's-
Zell is still the closest town.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's
You-
the
you was-
population today? What's the population of Zell?
You want me to count them? No.
Was it larger, or has it always been small? or-
No, it was larger once upon a time.
It was.
Oh, yeah.
How many there? Do 50 people live there?
Oh, maybe around 50 or so.
Pete, I'll ask some questions where you put your thinking cap back on again. It sort of fascinates me on this homesteading and these people out there, but I'm going to ask you some more questions about how did the Indians dress when you were a little girl?
Dress,
What did they wear when you were a little girl?
well, mostly feathers. Oh, they hide, they would, whenever they'd skin anything, shoot anything and skin it, they always saved the hide, and they tan it themselves, and they mostly dressed in hides and feathers.
Now, how did they wear their hair? How did the men wear their hair?
Always in tails, braided,
And how about the women? How about the women?
hanging loose, but the men braided them.
Did you ever see any of the Indians painted when they painted their faces, or?
Oh, yes, when they have some kind of doings, maybe they would, but otherwise they don't. Of course, it's more of a fad now, more than it was those days. Those days, all they thought of was travel and shoot and eat.
Did you see much of the army back in those days out there with the Indians, or not?
No, we were kids then, and that was west of the river, mostly towards the hills, But there's quite a few Indians west there yet. You can go down to Black Hills and have your picture taken with some of the old Indians if you want to. Just give them a quarter and they're right there.
Were there any black people out there in those days? Any Negroes, colored? Nothing.
None now.
And where did the farm hands come from mostly that worked on that were hired labor? Where did they?
You done it yourself. You didn't farm to be then, and you just mostly done it yourself.
Well, later years now, I can remember they took the train.
Yeah, I tell you, they used to hire the bums, as they call them. They go to town and sit around, they'd pick them up and hire them.
How about a death in the family, a funeral? How did they do it when you were a little child? When the relatives would die or something? What was the custom?
Well, they had funeral home in Redfield, they had a funeral home. Al Anderson had their funeral home.
When your mother died,
Well, how about when your mother died? How was that?
Well, I tell you, there was a priest in Zell, and they had this underground church and all. And a man by the name of Jake Sell made my mother's coffin. At that time, they made it out of this polished wood, and then they upholstered inside and all. And it was made kind of bigger on one end than the other.
like a coffin.
Like a coffin.
Now, did they bring the body back to the home? And have
Oh,
it-
years ago, everybody had in their home. Yes, even my husband. Yes, they had.
They had the wake at the home then.
They took them to town, and got them all ready, and then brought them, and people came and had the wakes and
Then you took it back to the church. Now,
Yes.
is the cemetery adjoining the church out there? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a old-fashioned cemetery right next to
I'll
you.
tell you, the cemetery in Zell is a nicer cemetery than the one in Rochelle, Illinois, if you want to know it. You see, my husband's buried in Rochelle, Illinois, and I have 2 little babies buried there.
How did you meet your husband?
Well, when I was about 19 or 20 years old, my cousins rode out. You see, I had cousins in Illinois. They rode out and they wanted to know if they sent me money if I wouldn't come out there on a visit to Mendota, Illinois. So so then my father said, they don't have to send me any money. He said, if you want to go to Uncle Richard's, you can go. So we made up our mind, and he got me a ticket and packed my trunk, and I went to my cousins in Mendota, Illinois. And then my cousins there, they worked in the laundry, but I didn't like that kind of a job, and they said that they knew of a place, some people by the name of Conkey, and I could go and do housework there if I got tired of staying there, and so I did. And then, of course, my oldest brother was in Rochelle, and that isn't very far apart, so then he used to come to Mendota once in a while, and so then he said, if I find you a place to work in Rochelle, wouldn't you rather come and work in Rochelle than there? Of course, there I had a brother, and here I had cousins, so he thought I'd better come to Rochelle. So then I went to Rochelle to work, and that's how I met my husband from Rochelle.
What did he do for a living?
He was a section boss, and after a while he was, I don't know, a kind of a maintenance man, you know, building railroad, you know, repairing railroads.
Which railroad would that be?
Which way? What railroad?
What railroad? What company?
What company? Northwestern.
Northwestern.
Oh, yes, heavens, I rode on the Northwestern a lot of times for nothing.
Yeah. And that he did that all his life, then he stayed on the railroad, worked on the railroad?
Not all his life. He came out home and farmed with my brother. Yes, but he was that for a long, long time. Yes.
Any funny incidents in your life that you like to remember?
Yes.
Why don't you tell about the time Uncle Frank?
Oh, yeah, but I'll
Sent
tell
the
it.
blind horse.
Oh, yes, that, the time
Tell 'em both then.
about the blind horse. This was when we were kids. My father bought a blind horse from a preacher, and this preacher's name was Stump. And of course, this Stump, he didn't tell my father this horse was blind. Of course, when he bought him, he only paid $15 for it, got him home, and the horse was blind. And we used to hitch him up and do everything with him. He could go all right, but so one Sunday, one of the kids was sick and we was to stay home, but my father said he'd go to church by himself. But at that time, we didn't have anything to go to church, only with a wagon on a team of horses. So he hitched up a team of horses and he went to church. And after, he was going maybe half a mile or so, my brother Frank, he goes out with a cowbell and rings this cowbell. And of course, this horse could smell but couldn't see. He followed my father clear to church. 10 miles.
Oh, the blind horse did? Yeah. I see.
And he was just so mad when he come home from church and was wondering why in the world, we always called him Stump.
Yeah.
He tied up the horses, went to church, and there was Stump standing beside the team. He was wondering why we didn't tie up the horse. Why, Frank says he didn't know if Stump was gone. Well, he knew well enough he was gone.
That was his little trick then.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything?
The time we lived in Rochelle, though, that was before we was married, though. The Kreiser girls wrote and from Mendota, and they said they had so many cherries. Why didn't we bring our boyfriends and come some Sunday, spend the Sunday to pick cherries? So I said, well, this was Aunt Laura, it was my husband's sister, and her boyfriend Zimmerman, August Zimmerman, and Joe and I. And they said they'd go and get a team of horses, they'd drive to Mendota, it was 23 miles. And I think they saw them coming when they hired them, this team. Oh. We got there all right and fine, and we had a big dinner and picked cherries. Oh, so many cherries. And we went in a Surrey. So, in the first place, we didn't start soon enough. We got about halfway home, the horses played out. They couldn't go any further. We had to stay and unhitch them and feed them. Hitch them up again and go some more. And you can imagine what the cherries looked like in hot weather by the time we got home. With all those cherries. Oh, boy. We had boxes of cherries sitting here and boxes here and a sack here and hot, and the cherries was soupy, and it was about 1 o'clock when we got home with these cherries.
Do you remember anything that made you mad, possibly, that you can recall? Some incident that happened in your early life or your married life that has made you mad that you possibly remember to this day?
Not so much.
How about politics out in South Dakota when you had much interest in that over the years?
Yes.
President Roosevelt, either one, Theodore Roosevelt or Franklin.
Well, our governor was Peter Norvig. Peter Norvig. I think he was red. Yeah.
What years were those that you was thinking of? Back in the 30s? Do you remember when you saw your first moving picture?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I never liked moving pictures. I don't like them. It's very big. I like movies. But my husband, oh, he was great on that. He always took the kids to Zell. Whenever there was movies coming, they had them in the hall. Yes, they had a hall. And they'd bring movies, and he always took the kids. I never went. I don't care. I always liked square dancing. Masquerades, things like that.
Do you remember any of the big news events like, does it stand out in your mind when Lindbergh flew the Atlantic? Is that
Oh, yes.
Armistice Day for World War I?
Yes.
World War II?
I remember Armistice Day. Yes.
Anything happened that day in particular?
Well, we thought it did. I don't know if everybody did, but at that time we lived in Rochelle on Armistice Day, and I remember there was a bunch of us women. We went someplace to some kind of doings they had on Armistice Day, and when we came out, we looked up in the sky and we thought the sky was the most beautiful red stars, every color of stars you can imagine. And it wasn't this northern lights like they have out there. I don't know whether they have here or not. But what is it they call them?
Northern Lights, I'd be the same.
No.
Aurora Borealis?
Yeah, or it's just beautiful out there. Oh, the whole sky is just beautiful. I
Had a
know.
big bonfire harvest. I can remember that myself, didn't I?
Yes. Oh, we used to celebrate. Oh, Armistice Day. Oh, we shot the cannon. We always had the cannon by the courthouse, and we shot that cannon. Oh, celebration.
Edna, is there anything that you think that we ought to mention? You can't think?
I
because you're almost scared and you can tell how I am.
I think it's fun just sort of rambling on here. Pete, you got any more thoughts?
You'll never do an unramble.
Just one or two more here.
Yeah, go ahead.
How about celebrations on the 4th of July in Dakota?
Oh, yes. I can tell you that. We had to work for those celebrations. And the very first picnic I went to, we went in an oxen team, that I remember. Because the horses are too wild, and my brother Leo said if we can't have the team of horses, we'll go with the oxen, and we did. And it was only about 3 miles, so we went that. And we always put up ice, and we made a big freezer of ice cream, and we took it along. Everybody had to take their eats along, you know. And the old settlers picnic. It ended up in Old Settlers Picnic, but the very first one was in Jake Sells there where Billy and Leo lived. And there's where we had our first picnic. And then we didn't want to go to the 4th of July picnic. There was a picnic south of us. And my father said that we couldn't go unless we picked all those cockleburs in the yard. That's one thing. We used to have cockleburs in the yard, and he said he'd give us a quarter if we picked them all up and piled them up. When they're dry, he'd burn them. So for about 3 days, we pulled cockleburs and piled them up in order to get this quarter to go to this 4th of July celebration. That's how we celebrated.
Do you remember what Redfield looked like in those days?
Well, there was just one street, and well, there was a Schwartz's clothing store, and Bloom's groceries, and butcher shop, and Al Anderson's undertaking and furniture, and it was a hotel that they tore down years ago. I can't even remember. And that was the only building that was there. And that was there for a long time. Of course, now it really hasn't built up a lot, but you see the feeble-minded home is there. The state feeble-minded home is there. And if anybody hasn't got a job, they go and work there.
Population about 3,500.
Yeah.
In Redfield.
And the feeble-minded home has over 1,000 people there. And it's built up, it's like a city of its own.
Do you remember when South Dakota became a state?
No, I don't think I
Maybe you were there. Maybe you were in Ohio.
maybe.
I think now it was 92. Does that sound right? 1892.
I don't know.
When South Dakota came in.
Hmm?
How long were you there before you were married? You were married in 1906. How long did you work out?
Well, you see, the first time that I went east, I was 19 years old.
I know, but you were born
Born in 82. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about changes from yesterday to today in children and everything? What would you?
Well, I'll tell you this much. I can see if nowadays kids has got to have everything, and I was left. Edna was grown up, but I was left with 4 little boys, and I never had any trouble with them, and there ain't very many people nowadays can say that.
There's nothing for kids to do, that's what's the matter. No work, I mean.
Work.
Yeah.
You want me to tell you what's wrong with this country? In plain English? There's too many sidewalks and not enough empty ground for the kids to play on. And if my husband was living today, he'd tell you that. When he was a boy, he says there used to be an empty lot here and there, and the kids would congregate, and they'd have the most fun, and they'd have play there and play games and this and that. And they didn't roam the streets. Nowadays they roam the streets and see what deviltry they can get into. No, and I'll tell you that's plain English.
I think kids expect too much nowadays,
How about changes in the church?
Changes in the church. Well,
You want to start on that?
well, I tell you, it was just like this. When I was going to get married, you had every name called out 3 times. And you couldn't have anybody else for a witness but Catholics. And so on and so forth.
That's all English now.
They had to read the banns in church.
Oh, always, yes, sir.
I bet you never heard of a priest going over to the Protestant church and marrying a couple either then.
No,
Not in those days.
No.
I'm sure they didn't.
I guess
No,
that's very
sir.
bad fun of that in the Methodist church.
Probably didn't.
Yes. Yeah. My grandson was married in the Methodist church. His girl was a Methodist. He was a Catholic. She took 5 instructions from the priest, and the priest went over there and married him. That was it. I went to the wedding. It was a beautiful wedding.
What Father Brown thought when his brown wife married him.
And his little brothers, he had 2 little brothers. They went up and lit the candles. He had another little brother. He was a ring bearer, and it was just beautiful. Everything.
Whatever, this house that you live in now, how old is it? The house that you live out there on the farm? in South Dakota?
Oh, what?
How
It's
old
not
is
so
the house?
old. How long have you lived in that house?
Well, not the house I'm living in now. You mean the house I'm living in now?
Yes.
Well, I tell you, when my son was going to be married, the boys said I said I wouldn't live with any of the kids, and the boys said, well, my son owned this land, you see. And they said, why not build your little house there across from Eddie's, and you can live there. So there was a house on that land. So they tore down an old house. It was just in the Depression when you couldn't buy lumber, you couldn't buy hardly a brick. I don't know how many miles they went to get enough brick to put a chimney on that house.
Is it about 25 years?
Yes, this was old. Eddie was married, yeah, 25 years. So they built it.
Pete, I've exhausted every possible avenue of approach here, right?
And,
Boulevard.
and it's just across the road from my son. I can get out the door and holler at him. That's close. The mail goes right by. Get your mail every day.
I think we better put the date on this thing, March 26, 1972. Close her off. Unless you have some more comments, why? This is history now.
There's a lady out there that lives in Zell, and she writes poems. She belongs to Catholic Church. She went to school. She went to the teachers' college once summer with Edna, and she writes poems. And you know she sells those books like hot fire. She writes them.
I'd like to see those someday.
I'm going to see if I can get one. And
I should get one.
then there's a man who lives in Redfield now, and he writes. What did I see? He calls it the life's history, and he calls the other book something else. And you know he's retired and he writes books.
But I'd like to have his Lawrence Welch book, Wonderful, Wonderful. You know, we used to bash Lawrence Welch.
You know Lawrence
there
Welch.
that little parish
Yeah,
hall, and played for dances when it was only
in Zell.
3 pieces.
Lawrence Welch used to play at that Zell.
Yeah,
Yes.
he used to play his accordion and dance out.
He dance out in among the people. I can see him yet.
Yeah.
The other 2 fellows be up on the stage and he'd be dancing around with his accordion. And then he used to play out to the lake. There was a man had a dance hall out the Cottonwood Lake, and he used to play out there. Years. I see now in my paper the other day I was reading, they're starting to make they're gonna start up at Clark, South Dakota, what they call a hash brown potatoes. I don't know, it's a potato country, and they're gonna make, I don't know, what all, out of potatoes. And Joe Feeney is the head of that.
It sings for Lawrence Rock.
Yes, because he is from there.
Was he from around there also?
Yes.
He was, but she said.
Well, yes, he is from around there. And the accordion player is from Webster. He used to raise garden stuff at Webster in order to go to school, to music school in Sioux Falls. Yes. And Lawrence Welk was from North Dakota, and he went and got stationed in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and he used to drive with a horse and buggy to all different places and play for dances. And even now, when he comes to Mitchell and around there, and everybody goes.
You've heard of the, and they're the Hutterites. They
And the Hutterites.
They write in the Redfield.
You know what they are?
Well, tell us about
That religious sect.
Religious.
what are they? What's this colony like? Have you been there? You visited?
Well, I've been near there, but my brother used to always go there and buy a lot of stuff. Well, they are, well, you might say they don't farm a lot, only garden truck, mostly garden truck. And then they generally situate along the river there and they irrigate, you know, and they're great on geese. They raise geese, some hogs, but great, a lot of geese. And then they peddle their stuff. You can go there and buy it, or they'll peddle it. Now, my niece cooks at the rest home there in Redfield, and she orders every day. They come there, and she buys the stuff, and then she gives them orders, and the next day they bring it. See, and they,
How long have they been there?
oh my, long time. But now, years ago, they're a school of their own, and not much education, but they can't do that now. They have school and teachers go there
And
and
tell
teach.
how they live, their home is, how they have one common dining hall.
Yeah, they have a dining hall. They all eat together, see. And when they go to church, they all go to church, and there's one man is the minister, and everyone wears a white silk shirt and black pants. And they go to town, why they all wear a black stiff hat, you know, straight stiff hat. A lot, like the Dunkers do here. And they don't mingle with people, they mingle among themselves mostly. And that's their church, or what church they believe in, I don't know, but then that's the way they go to church. This one man is really their minister. And they have beards, they have long beards. Mostly drive a truck.
Can they have cars?
Oh, they can have them, I guess, if they want to. But the women wear long dresses and a little bit like the Amish up here. Puts your mind at them more.
He done, and we're about out of tape.
They're all-